and welcome to my new photography channel, Jeff's Photography, Adelaide, which is where I live. If you're here, there's a good chance you're interested in photography, and like me, you're probably very keen on it. And so today I thought I'd just pose a few questions about photography and try and find out, just focus in on a few issues and find out why you really like photography. I've got lots of reasons why I like photography, but I'm just going to show some, or read out from some notes I've got here, some questions. I'll intersperse it with photos I've taken over the years to try and illustrate the point, and then just ask a couple of questions at the end. So there you go. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. This is a Pentax SP1000, similar to the Pentax Spotmatic, which I started off photography with, and I've got a Tamron zoom on here, and it is a 70 to 220 millimeters zoom lens, f4 constant aperture, whatever that means. So I'm hoping in the new year, or in this year, as we're in the new year, to actually go out and do a few camera walks. And what I'd like to do with this camera is put this lens on this camera, load it up with film, take it to a location where there's some birds that I know and animals maybe, and scenery that I can probably get without worrying too much about movement and blur and all that sort of stuff. And also take an adapter to put it on one of my Micro Four Thirds Olympus cameras to see what sort of shots I get and how hard it is to use a camera and a lens like this compared to a lens like this and a camera like that. So anyway, that being said, let's get into some of these questions here. I'll just put that down here somewhere, and I'll probably lose it, never to be seen again. Anyway, so it's obvious that today's world, and I'll be looking over here and reading a few questions, is obsessed with photography. Once it was a hobby for many and a profession and livelihood for some. Now we put photos all over social media. Why do we do that? The world seems to be obsessed with that. The gambit of photography covers some of the following genres, if you like. That's a fancy word, isn't it? Or types of photography. So there's documentary photography, where you just document things that are going. I've been taking a few photos over the last few months of a major work on our local tram line, building bridges over the road and all that sort of stuff. And so I've been documenting that, as lots of other people have. And then record keeping. Sometimes you like to keep a record of things, and the only way I know why I've done things over the years, that our family's done things, when everyone else says, no, we never did that, I say, oh yes, we did, I've got a photo of that. So, documentary, record keeping. And, record keeping is what I was talking about. Family portraiture. Sure. The best place to learn taking photos of people is with your own family, and that can lead on to all sorts of other things, including weddings and special events. And people photography. And then you can move on into sports. You can do your local sports of your own kids playing sport, or the big time. Go to one of the big matches between. In Australia we have the AFL and we have Test cricket. So I go to some of those matches, but I also go to some of the lesser leagues and take photos there as well. And wildlife and nature study. Some of the latest cameras now and the lenses are just amazing at getting beautiful wildlife photos and bird photography and scenery, and the clarity and the focus and everything is both video and stills is just so amazing. The recording of history. I'm going to show you a few photos here in a minute of an old magazine I have called Black and White Magazine, which was I think it was a weekly magazine that came out in England many years ago, and I've got a whole year's copies of the 1899 version of Black and White Magazine. And in that time, 1899, they were still doing things with a lot of illustrations in the magazine, but also photography was coming in too. So I'm going to show you a few examples of that. Advertising, there are some examples of advertising in that as well. Storytelling, illustration in books. Many people, of course, illustrate books these days with artwork and illustrations, but they're also used for illustrations of a story as well. And it's really a wonderful thing to see. And then, of course, you have how-to books and books about wildlife and photography and landscapes and people, wedding photography even. And there's lots of photos in them to illustrate what it is. So these are some of the things, just to name a few. So you stop and take a look at the development of photography, capturing the first image with an instrument or a camera. And some of the cameras, one of my favourite books is by Darius and Tabitha Kinsey, my favourite photographers from America. And the equipment that they used to photograph work in the logging camps in New York State are just amazing. And they were taken with some pretty primitive equipment, but the quality is bar none. It's second to none. And then you get the increasing and then you've got the reproduction of images in prints or slide forms as well, and then the increasing complexities of the camera, still images and moving images. The devices include today's mobile phones. The devices, including today's mobile phones, are amazing in the complexities of their technology and the incredible results, with very little expertise required of the person capturing the image. Just have to point and shoot and know how to frame and compose a shot, really. And of course you've got the immediacy of instant photography. What was once the domain of a skilled craftsman or the keen hobbyist has become everyday and taken for granted. But what about the true value of an image? What is the chief worth of images taken on the most primitive of devices? I'm frankly put off by the myriads of people teaching us how to process photos in whatever form of digital darkroom is the latest. Some of the images you look at online and in print are obviously manipulated beyond our human experience and the view we get from the camera that is our eyes and our minds. So what they do with digital editing is spectacular, but like so much of everything these days, they are artificial. What I mean by that is that everything is enhanced over and above what you actually saw. And now with AI, artificial intelligence, it's getting even worse. You never know what you're looking at is real or not these days, although usually you can guess straight away because they're so absurd, some of the things they're putting up on places like YouTube. Well, you might say, well, so what? I'm enjoying what I'm looking at, and that's fair enough. There's a place for that. But let's think about some of the images that have changed the world. Apart from the documentary of our own families, and then the ravages of war and strife and exploration, all these documentary type subjects. Most of the photography taken until about the year 2000 was captured on very inferior technology to what is now available. But those images, way back, changed our worldview in many cases, and they impacted politics, science, human understanding, just to name a few. An image taken with just a simple film camera may have been imperfect technically as far as sharpness, correctness of exposure, but they have had far-reaching impact. I remember doing that in my wedding photography, and sometimes I would discuss with the bride, why did you pick that photograph to enlarge? It's not technically perfect, it's not necessarily sharp, it's on a bit of an angle, and why did you pick that one out to be enlarged? And she said, the moment that my husband and I, they were holding hands walking into the reception room, the moment my husband and I walked in and everyone was standing up and clapping, we saw all our friends and relatives there, she said, I felt like $1 million. That's why I liked the photo. So it wasn't a perfect photograph, but it was a perfect emotional moment captured. So when your camera club judge marks you down according to the rules, are they taking into account why you shot the image, what it means to you personally, what it means to a family member? Taking it even further, is photography able to help someone cope with grief and loss? Is your photography helping you in your life's journey? Is the image having an emotional impact on you? Sometimes images can bring up troubling memories. Your wedding photos from a failed marriage are something you probably have trouble looking at. Or maybe you can use them to gain some healing. Can you use images for healing, even things that are bad memories? Can you use that as a catalyst for having some counselling? can images help you in praying for people? If you're a Christian, you might want to pray for a lot of people. There was a man called Frank Lawback some years ago. He's well and truly dead by now, but he wrote some amazing books on prayer and other things. I think he called Prayer the Vocabulary of God. And one of the things he suggested in his little booklet was he would go into a darkened room and he'd have all these photographs of people he wanted to pray for pasted on the wall of his room. And in the darkened room, he would turn the flashlight on, and as it highlighted one particular person, he'd pray for that person, move to another one, pray for that person, and sort of focusing, bringing all of his mind on what he was actually doing. Interesting idea, isn't it? I've tried that a little bit. So I would like to hear from people who have been impacted by a photograph or series of photos, even though they were not technically perfect. It can be someone else's image or one you've taken yourself. You can tell me about it. You don't have to actually show the photo. You can describe, like I just described a minute ago, what was going on in the mind of the bride who I was talking to. Sometimes you can put a link up to a web page if it's a historical item, which you can then share with us or tell us about it so we can all look it up. Now, many images may well be out of copyright, of course, and you've got to be careful about copyright with all this. So as I've been going through this, I have been showing you some photos and of assortment images, sort of illustrating some of the things I'm talking about. But I'd like to hear from you guys about why you really like photography, how photography is impacted on your life, all the questions that I'm raising. Tell me about them. I'd love to hear from you, and be assured I'll respond to them. And any comments that you make, I'll comment back. So thanks for watching. Like if you like, subscribe if you wish, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later.